Okay, let us start now. Good morning, everyone. I know that there's also some people from other parts of the world. So, good morning, Margaret. Good morning, Adrian Dubak. Nice to see you here. So, welcome to the ISAAA webinars organized by the International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications, or ISAAA, and we are now hosted by the ISAAA Southeast Asia Center based at Erie, Los Baños, Philippines. I am Dr. Rodora Romero Aldemita, Director of ISAAA Southeast Asia Center and the Global Knowledge Center on Crop Biotechnology. Safeguarding food security and nutrition is critical in order for countries to overcome problems of hunger and malnutrition. The interplay of current various challenges of high population rate, political instability, degradation of natural resources, forced migration, and the ongoing COVID-19 will make a significant impact on food security that could raise the hunger and malnutrition problems globally. Socioeconomic benefits of biotech crops have been documented by Graham Brooks in the last 23 years, and it showed that it contributed to crop productivity, self-sufficiency, conservation of biodiversity, mitigation of challenges associated with climate change, and in improving the economic health and social benefits. ISA strongly espouses the science, benefits, and safety of biotech crops with the publication of ISA Review of Biotech GM Crop Commercialization, now on its 24th year. So this is Brief 55. Today's seminar will highlight the global database on the adoption and distribution of biotech crops since the first year of commercialization in 1996, country situations and future prospects of the technology. And we also have a presentation on the adoption and challenges in Africa, a biotech adoption experience from a Filipino farmer, and a youth perspective on the technology. We are live via Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're currently 64 participants. I don't know how many we have in Facebook. And our webinar will run for 1 hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours at the most. Please send your questions or comments via the Q&A button, which will be answered during the discussion session later. All the microphones and cameras are off except the ones for the panelists. And we encourage you to tweet or post at Facebook using hashtag GMCrops2019 and hashtag ISAReport2019. So to start, let me now introduce our first speaker. Dr. Paul Teng is the Managing Director of the National Institute of Education, International Private Limited, and Adjunct Senior Fellow of the Center for Non-Traditional Security Studies, both at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. He is also a Senior Fellow of the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research for Agriculture, or CIRCA, based in the Philippines. He specializes in food security, agri-technology innovations, and sustainable bio-entrepreneurship. He previously held senior positions in the International Rice Research Institute, the World Fish Center, and the U.S. universities in Minnesota and Hawaii. Dr. Teng obtained his bachelor's degree in agricultural sciences with honors and PhD from the University of Canterbury, New Zealand. He has published over 12 books and 250 papers and visited over 40 countries for work. Among his awards are an honorary doctoral degree from Murdoch University and election as a fellow of several scientific bodies. Dr. Teng, you have the floor, please. You have the screen, please.
Thank you very much, Ola. Well, it's a real pleasure to be with you this morning for this webinar, and especially to highlight to you aspects of the global status of commercialized biotech crops in 2019. Oops. Let me just... Biotechnology crops remain important, part of the arsenal globally. And as we all know, the world needs to increase food production by 70%, by different time frames, especially 2050. And we also know that climate change continues to confer stresses on crop production. and I'm sure our farmer colleague on the panel will refer to that much later on. And also the likelihood for severe food insecurity and undernutrition remains very high, estimated at 20% in low-income countries. And certainly, with more than 820 million people still hungry worldwide, achieving SDG 2, which is zero hunger by 2030, is going to be difficult to achieve and will require biotechnology applications. The next few minutes, pleased to share with you biotech crop adoption in 2019 calendar year, some of the important biotech crops and traits, and also future prospects, 2019 and beyond. Let me first start off by sharing that in 2019, 190.4 million hectares of biotech crops were grown in 29 countries, an increase of 3, but up to 17 million farmers. And this slide graphically shows the dramatic increase from the first year the biotech crops were commercially planted in 1996. Okay? And we've noted several times that biotech crops have been one of the fastest adopted technologies worldwide in modern agriculture. If we look at the breakdown of areas and countries that are growing biotech crops, the developing countries overtook the industrialized countries more than a decade ago. So much so that today, 55.5% of the area under biotech crops are from developing countries, compared to 44.5% from industrialized countries. In area terms, 105.7 million hectares from developing countries, and 84.7 million hectares from the developed or industrialized countries. Now, the adoption in 2019 was down by 0.7%, roughly 1.3 million hectares. Okay? And this was caused mainly by reduced plantings of soybean in North America due to the surplus stock from the previous year, and also trade issues. And also the drought in Australia was the other reason for accounting for the decrease in planted areas in 2019. But there are also other interesting news on the horizon which will be shared later on. If we look at it map-wise, the global area is reflected by different regions. This map shows that in 2019, there were 19 mega countries growing over 50,000 hectares in each country. And region-wise, South America or Latin America is on par with North America now in terms of global area, under biotech crops. And certainly the increase in the Asia Pacific and also in Africa are other noteworthy points. And the EU continues to have just 2 countries growing biotech crops. This map, by the way, is one of the most downloaded assets, I think, from the ISAAA website. Very graphically illustrates where the biotech crops are being grown in different world regions. 5 countries grew about 91% of the world's biotech crops. And these are the US, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, and India. As you will note, Brazil and Argentina are very important developing countries. Now, the first 4 countries are also the ones that annually have global food surplus for export, food and feed surplus for export to the rest of the world, especially Brazil and Argentina, which are very important sources now of soybean and corn for the rest of the world, especially for Asia with soybeans. There are also some highlights from 2019, and these countries have registered double-digit increases in biotech crop areas. Vietnam, spectacularly, 86% increase in maize area. The Philippines, that is hosting this webinar, 39% increase in maize area. In Colombia, 15% increase in both maize and cotton. If you look at a bit more detail in terms of breakdown by region, the area, as I indicated earlier, between North America and Latin America are roughly equal now. The diversity of crops, the US and Canada, and North America, are reflected in areas of maize, soybeans, cotton, canola, sugar beets, alfalfa, papaya, squash, potato, and apples. And I'll have a few more examples later on. Because Latin America, soybean, maize, cotton, pineapple, sugarcane, alfalfa, and safflower. And for the Asia Pacific, the 19.5 million hectares in the countries shown with cotton, maize, canola, eggplant, sugarcane, and safflower. Of course, in the European Union, the EU, the single Biotech crop that is still grown is maize in both Spain and Portugal. And my colleague, Dr. Karembu, will talk a bit more about Africa, but the noteworthy point here is the increased number of countries that are now growing Biotech crops in Africa, the 3 new countries, notably Malawi, Niger, and Ethiopia. Okay. Now, in terms of the crops themselves, soybean remains the most widely grown Biotech crop. As you can see from this slide here, followed by maize and cotton. While the soybean area seems to have tapered off a little bit in 2019, the areas under maize and cotton continue to rise. And ISAAA for the past few years has been predicting that there's still a lot of upside in area growth for maize and for cotton, especially in Africa. And I think we'll be very happy to listen later on to Dr. Karembu again, tell us a bit more about this. Also noteworthy in 2019 is the fact that Brazil surpassed the US in terms of Biotech soybean area by some 15%, or 4.7 million hectares. And this is very important for Asia, especially where we all lived in at the moment, because Asia continues to show an increase in consumption of animal protein, which requires soybean and maize secondarily as animal feed. Okay. In fact, I usually like to say that Asia is responsible to import at least 70% of the world's surplus soybeans every year. That shows how important it is for these countries in Latin America to have the surplus to export to us, kind of meet hungry Asians over here. Okay. Now, in terms of another metric to reflect the growing importance of Biotech crops, as part of the arsenal of technology in total crop area, Biotech cotton now occupies 79% of the global cotton area. Soybeans reaching the 3/4 mark, 74%, maize only 31%. And again, that emphasized that we see a lot of upside for further adoption of maize, especially in Africa. And canola, about 27%, and this is still a limited crop area, particularly in Australia and the Americas. Okay? So these are the big 4 crops in terms of area under biotechnology crops. There are many other secondary crops, which I'll report in a few minutes, that are equally important in terms of the increase in biotech crop adoption in 2019. For the Asia Pacific, we have 17 countries that have adopted biotech crops, but of these, there are 9 planting and 8 importing countries. The 8 importing countries, these are the ones that don't plant, are Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, China, and Thailand and Turkey. Okay? We hope that sometime in the future that some of these importing countries will also be planting countries. That's our goal and aspiration in the Asia Pacific. Now, by trade, while herbicide tolerance was the main trait amongst biotech crops adopted, that trait again has started to taper off a little bit for the last few years. And this has been accompanied by the increase in the stack traits, which does include herbicide tolerance and insect resistance. And this visual graphically shows that there's now 85.1 million hectares of stacked traits globally. Okay? And this has increased to constitute 44.7% of the global area under biotech crops. Now, this next visual is another very popular visual that is often downloaded and used by many, many people all over the world when discussing biotech crops to show the countries, especially the mega countries in 2019. I won't go into detail because one of the previous slides already gives the areas that each of the countries is growing. But what this slide enables to see really is for each country, the area associated with that particular country. So 19 mega countries indeed that are growing 50,000 hectares or more of biotech crops in each of those countries. And it actually very nicely reflects the regions that are the biotech anchor regions at the moment, notably North America and Latin America. Okay, and also I think we're starting to see now the Asia Pacific becoming another anchor area. Maybe not so much in area yet, but certainly in the number of countries that are starting to grow, or have been growing biotech crops. And my colleague, Dr. Karembu, will share with you her enthusiasm to see Africa also being an anchor region. There's a number of countries that will grow biotech crops. Now, some of the highlights from 2019, are reflected in the next two slides. And this is really expanding beyond the big four crops. It's showing the diversity indeed of important food crops and feed crops that are now part of the portfolio of global biotech crops. The non-browning potato and the non-browning apple are small areas, but important parts of our diets. And in particular, I'd like to emphasize this, because both the apple and potato, especially the apple, the way that we eat this culturally is so different in North America versus Asia. Because in Asia, as we all know, we usually share our food. And with apples in particular, once we cut them up into slices, they brown so fast when shared on the plate. So this non-browning trait is important because it really delays, the freshness appearance of the apple. And so that we don't waste food, we don't throw away food. And food waste is very important for us, those who live in developing countries, because FAO, the Food Agriculture Organization's data has shown that food waste is always higher in developing countries compared to developed countries. If food loss, food waste is lower in developing countries, compared to actually developed countries. But food loss itself is much higher in developing countries. So anything we can do to in fact, reduce further food loss and waste will be a big help to us in the fight against food insecurity. Of course, the BT eggplant is a continuing story. And the fact that there's been an increase in area in Bangladesh is a very important sign, I think, for other countries. Okay? And with regards to sugarcane, the insect-resistant sugarcane in Brazil, and then the drought-tolerant sugarcane in Indonesia, the 2,000 hectares that are grown in government-owned farms in Indonesia. It's also a very important development. And of course, in Australia, the high oleic safflower, the 3,500 hectares. And then in Latin America, Costa Rica, the 115 hectares of pink pineapple, which apart from the coloring, a pineapple that remains and maintains sweetness, irrespective of growing conditions. Again, is very, very important in terms of consumer acceptance of biotech crops. Now, apart from growing of crops, we've noted that many other countries import biotech crops. And this slide basically shows that there are 71 countries that have granted regulatory approvals, some 4,485 of those for 32 GM crops. The US still leads in this tally here, by having granted the most number of approvals of events that are linked to both food, feed, and processing, as well as cultivation. And maize is the crop that leads the tally in terms of different kinds of crops, with 146 approved events in 26 countries. By the way, much of this data is on the ISAAA website, and you might want to refer to the ISAAA website for more details, even by country, if you're interested. Okay? We do have a very important database that records all these approvals, and is updated very regularly by our staff. Okay? Now, going forward, these are the approvals in 2019 that are worth highlighting. Okay? And we're also hoping that in the report for 2020, there'll be plantings that reflect these approvals. As you can see, cotton, apple, canola in the US, and in Argentina and Brazil, the maize and cotton, insect resistance, and also stacked traits. And of course, in 3 other Latin American countries, the soybean, the stacked traits, the drought tolerance, which as we go forward with regards to climate change, will also become a very important trait that other regions of the world may benefit from. So these are approvals in 2019, for which we're hoping to see areas planted reflected in 2020. Okay. The biotech crops in the pipeline also offer, some room for excitement. The non-browning lettuce, and then in the case of potatoes, one of the most devastating pests, the Colorado potato beetle, which after potato late blight is a real worry for many, many potato farmers. Thankfully, we will see some level of resistance and commercial varieties being released that help us resist the Colorado potato beetle, which currently uses a fair amount of insecticides in North America. Then there's wheat, drought tolerance, which is amongst the first in the world, and hopefully we'll see some reports of it, regulatory approvals, and also planting in subsequent years, starting in Latin America. And of course, with regards to rice, closer to home, improvements in nutrient use efficiency, water use efficiency especially, and salt tolerance. We know that with regards to salt-tolerant rice, there's already a gene-edited rice that is undergoing regulatory approval in some countries. Okay? And these will be game changers to help us grow more rice with less, under more difficult and highly variable climatic conditions in Southeast Asia especially. And again, just to highlight this point, especially with regards to water use efficiency, we're starting to see water becoming a constraint, a regular supply of water to rice farming in many Southeast Asian countries. Okay? So we're indeed thankful that science is enabling these traits to now be captured in biotech crops. I just want to share a little bit here on the benefits that biotech crops confer to some of the major issues facing humankind: food security, sustainability, and climate change. And the figures really speak for themselves. The increase in crop productivity that has been enabled through biotech crops, especially in terms of income gain to smallholder farmers. Some $225 billion that have been estimated by Graham Brooks in his work as increases in crop productivity. And then the conservation of biodiversity, the fact that we don't need to cut down forests, that we've been able to grow a lot more crops on the same area. Some 231 million hectares in terms of improved productivity has been the estimate. That environment, reduced pesticide use, crop protection chemicals, for example, some 776 million kilograms of active ingredients that have been reduced because of growing biotech crops. And then finally, the CO2 emissions, the ability, equivalency, in fact, of removing 15.3 million cars off the road, and the CO2 emissions that they are responsible for. And of course, in terms of helping people, livelihoods. There are 17 million farmers who have benefited from biotech crops in terms of their livelihoods, and with respect to poverty alleviation and hunger alleviation. And their extended family counts of 65 million people. So in a nutshell, I think the biotech crop benefits have been very substantial and also substantive in helping humankind through agriculture. Okay? Going forward, though, to ensure that we continue the economic benefits of biotech crops, we really need diligence and forward-looking regulatory frameworks and steps based on science. I think science-based regulations is really the way to go to ensure that humankind, including farmers, benefit from the improvements that we see in R&D, research and development. Okay? And that part of this requires us to look at benefits and weigh them against risk. And of course, agriculture productivity, environmental conservation and sustainability, which is really a very big part of the SDGs as well, environmental stewardship, which is so key. And of course, finally, the consideration to the millions of hungry and impoverished people. And as we've heard from the United Nations groups, World Food Programme and others, hunger and food insecurity are major issues that remain for us and have not significantly improved in the last few years. So indeed, many parts of the battle that humankind is facing can be helped by biotech crops. Just to reinforce that point further, many of the factors, the challenges identified by the Food and Agriculture Organization are the factors that biotech crops can make major contributions to. It's not just the population growth, it's climate change, productivity, innovation, pest and disease problems, nutrition and health, and of course, food losses and waste that biotech crops can make major contributions to. Just to re-emphasize this point, that I think my colleague, Dr. Karembu, will also emphasize, biotech really continues to be so important, to meet the 50% increase in food demand by 2050 that the Food and Agriculture Organization has articulated. So thank you very much for signing into this webinar, and we look forward to the panel discussion later on. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing the slides now.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Teng, for the comprehensive discussion of the highlights. Now we move forward to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Margaret Karembu, the director of ISAAA AfriCenter. She is the principal convener of the Africa Biennial Biosciences Communication Symposium, or ABBC Symposium. Dr. Karembu is the editor-in-chief of Drumbeat, a monthly newsletter on Africa Bioscience Trends. She is the founding chair of the Africa Women for Biosciences, the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology in Africa, Kenya chapter, and Africa Association for the Advancement of Synthetic Biology. Moreover, Dr. Karembu is the PBS IFPRI Biosafety Communications Advisor for Africa. She holds a PhD in Environmental Science Education from Kenyatta University, Kenya. You have the floor now, Dr. Karembu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rodora, and also to our board chair, Professor Paul Teng, for setting the pace. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to join you from Nairobi, Kenya. It's still early morning, but still we can have a cup of tea or coffee to share and also some bit of knowledge. So I'm going to present to you the Africa Biotech Crops Adoption by 2019 and also look at some of the challenges that we have had in Africa, but most importantly, the progress we have made over the last 19 years. So I start from where Professor Paul has stopped about the farmer, and who better to tell us why farmers need better tools than the farmers themselves. And here I have a story from Christopher, who is a farmer in Kenya. And this is what he experienced in 2018 when he planted his corn crop. And he said, I have made 100% loss of my maize crop this season due to the fall armyworm. If scientists have a solution, I need it now. And then we have Lucia from Malawi, also in Africa, who has been growing BT cotton in her farm, and what she has seen over the last many years is whenever she plants her cotton, she has been getting just about 10 balls or less per plant. But when she went to see the experimental fields in Malawi by researchers there, she was able to count more than 40 balls per plant, just emphasizing that farmers really do need new tools because we have emergence of new pests because of climate change that are bringing in new pests like the fall armyworm was not known in Africa for the last 5 years. We have seen it really expanding and destroying farmers' crops. And then we have the recurrent drought, which continues to ravage many of our farmers' crops. Then we also know that it is very urgent for us to address this challenge of having better tools to the farmer. What we have in Africa, and indeed I know even in many parts of Asia, is the growing aging population of the farmer. And in Kenya here and most parts of Africa, the average age of a farmer is 65 years old. You can imagine food production being in the hands of 65-year-olds and above. Then we also need to attract this generation of young people back to farming who are not even registering as many in our faculties of agriculture, in our universities than they used to be. And this is because then we need to have better tools, we need efficiency, we need smart technologies that would encourage young people to come on board. Young people want pleasurable tools where necessary. And this is how this technology, biotechnology, is addressing and promising. So I'll go now straight to Africa. So what is motivating us to continue advocating for this technology? And again, I look at the farmer testimonials who are growing BT cotton. Here I have Maria Swele from South Africa. She's 35 years old. And this is what she had to say after adopting BT cotton. That BT cotton enterprise has been rewarding, enabling me to purchase 2 tractors, a car, and a house. I also managed to pay for my younger sister's education. Attending to our crops is so much easier and has drastically reduced the labor. We no longer need to carry crude tools to weed and spray our crops, as this is now done mechanically. And so this is what they used to have before. And all these crude weapons, they never now have to carry because they can go to the farm with the very simplified mechanical tools that are also enabled by the efficiency of the technology. Looking at 2019, what were the key highlights? Africa grew close to 3 million hectares of biotech crops. The number of countries with commercial approvals increased from 3 to 6, so that is double the number of countries. And these countries were Sudan, Ethiopia, Malawi, South Africa, the Kingdom of Eswatini, which was the former Swaziland, and to the west of Africa, Nigeria grew biotech crops. And the number of approved crops also increased to 4. And currently now, we also have, by end of 2019, 1 new country that approved, although it did not plant, and this is Kenya, my country. It approved BT cotton, but because it was done in December 2019, they didn't plant, but we expect that this year, and we have actually seen farmers are already starting to plant. So we have 4 commercial crops. 6 of them are now also in research and development, and most of them have been completed. Very, very importantly, Africa is also researching on close to 16 traits: insect resistance, drought, stacked traits, herbicide tolerant, and nutrition enhancement, virus resistance, and so on. So the countries that you see in yellow are those countries where there are already experiments happening, 6 of them, and we expect that in the very close years they'll be commercializing. Then in terms of the new approvals, in 2019, Nigeria became the first country globally to approve cultivation of BT cowpea. This is insect-resistant cowpea. So Africa now has 4 approved biotech crops. These are cotton, cowpea, which is the new crop, maize, corn, and soybean. and these are being grown by our farmers. And the number of crops that are in the pipeline, R&D, 6 of them, cassava, banana, potato, rice, sorghum, and plantain, are all being researched and led by our African scientists. And we are very excited that more and more of these crops are actually crops that have not been grown before in the world. For example, in the case of Nigeria, insect-resistant cowpea has not been grown in the world. So Nigeria added a new biotech crop in the global basket, adding to the number of crops that have been grown. When it comes to adoption trends, here I have the map that is most downloaded, the Paul has just mentioned. But when you look at Africa compared to the rest of the world, Africa is only having 1.5% adoption compared to the North and South Americas, where adoption is now, they are commanding close to 90% of all the adoption of biotech crops. With Africa, even in Asia, we have seen the trends is just about 10%, and then in the Europe and the others, about 0.06%. So this means that these are the regions that are still having the highest potential for adoption of new crops. And looking at the acreage or the number of crops, then Africa is ripe to add new crops that have not been there, in addition to the three that I've already mentioned, cotton, maize, and soybean that are being grown in Africa. Then in terms of adoption from South Africa, which is the first country in Africa that adopted biotech crops, that has been growing from 1998 to date. This is the 22nd year of commercialization. The trend has been very promising. And in 2019, South Africa grew 2.7 million hectares of biotech crops. And again, the adoption is already now over 90%. As you can see, over the last 4 years, there's a bit of plateauing because the three crops that have been grown, maize, cotton, and soybean in South Africa, are already almost reaching the saturation point. So they need more crops, they need more traits, and this is exactly what Africa is currently trying to add to the global basket: new crops, new traits. Then the second country that has been adopting biotech crops in Africa is Sudan. Sudan started growing from 2012-2013 cropping season, and it's also growing BT cotton, insect-resistant cotton. And again, the adoption trend is very encouraging. And in 2019, Sudan grew 236,200 acres of biotech crop. This is BT cotton, and it's already now at 95% adoption, meaning that all the cotton grown in Sudan is BT cotton. And one attribute that has contributed to slight decline from 2018 to 2019 was the seasonal fluctuation. Again, talking about the challenges of weather, seasonal fluctuations. Countries have seen an upsurge of heavy flooding, and then again followed by prolonged periods of drought. In terms of farm income gains, again, we see Africa is still lagging behind with just about 1.1% of farm income gains from the 1996 to 2018, as informed by Brooks and Tim, Graham and Tim. But again, we have already seen that South Africa has made an average yield increase over this period of 11% for corn, BT maize, and 24% for cotton, emphasizing that there is still a lot of room for African farmers to benefit from this crop, because already those have adopted are already showing gains in terms of yield increase and also in income for farmers. And this is just a testimonial from Sudan, and the crop has been very good over the last 8 years that they have grown BT cotton, and this has drastically raised their yields by 2 to 3 times higher compared to the conventional varieties that they have been growing. And this explains why adoption has already reached 95% and above, even within a very short period of time. Now, let me now look very quickly at the regulatory and policy landscape. How has this progressed in Africa? Now, this is a story of what we call twists and turns. But again, we had progress in 2019, where one other West African country, Francophone West Africa, Niger, approved its biosafety law, adding to close to 13 countries now in Africa that have already had a functional biosafety system, which is enabling the vibrant research that is happening in Africa. Now, what has been the trend? When you look at the level of development and the functionality, there are some countries that have shot from the zero to all the way to commercialization, which is green. But there are also other countries that have stagnated in the yellow, where they have been conducting research over the last 15 years, but they have not been able to progress to commercialization. There are a few countries that have been able to move from research to what we call agronomic trials in mainly in the open fields, but still have not been able to go to commercialization. And yet, there are also others that have been struggling, moving up and down. Indeed, in around 2012 and 2015, we did have two other countries that had already reached commercialization. These are Egypt and Burkina Faso. But because of some of the challenges we have seen in terms of over-regulation, political interference with the regulatory process, and the long, tedious process that applicants and developers are having, these are challenges and many, many other extraneous factors that have resulted in Africa, some countries dropping and other countries just not progressing. We have had the serious challenge of misinformation and aggressive activism against the technology, mainly driven by small green groups from Europe and also from the other Western world countries. And this emphasizes the importance of continuously sharing science-based information and adoption trends, which ISAAA has been trying to do so that these countries that are having challenges of misinformation can still, policymakers can use the knowledge that we share to make decisions so that we don't have policy impasse in approval. Because Africa is ripe for technology. It is one of the regions that has the highest potential for adoption of crops because of food insecurity and also climate change impacts. So what lessons have we learned from the COVID-19 pandemic and indeed from the 20 years of crop biotech, 24 years of crop biotech adoption? One is the unprecedented disruption of production and distribution of food, raising food insecurity further, the price of food. And we saw in March, which is one of the cropping seasons in Africa, where there were restrictions of movement, where farmers could not even access seed for planting. And this implies that we need to plant and produce food at source and facilitate transition of biotech crops from research and development to commercialization. We have also learned the importance of trusting in the science and the need to apply science-based and efficient GM crop regulatory system, because again, if we don't apply science, then we have more and more countries remaining at a stage where they are in stagnation. They're not able to apply and get approval for biotech crops because of policy impasse. Thirdly, is the importance of tapping the potential of new breeding techniques and tools, for example, genome editing, which has potential in not just agriculture, but even in health, environment, and industry. But very, very importantly, for these lessons to apply, we need to address some urgent challenges that continue to derail the process of adoption. And these are the strongly held misconceptions, the overdue that have stayed for a very long time, remained in the public domain. So we need to up communication and knowledge sharing. The second one is what we have seen as the low know-how of plant breeding in general, where young people are not getting into agricultural faculties to learn more and more about plant breeding. And so we would encourage that with new tools, then these young people should really get into agriculture because there are better tools for farming. Then thirdly, we need to address the issues of misinformation, and also the issue of just derailed adoption, which has also reduced the number of companies, private companies in biotechnology that could facilitate more young people to start bioentrepreneurship in our context. Because when you have the private sector being driven at the local level, then you have more and more people getting into the sector. So moving forward to the future, in Africa, we have this our 5-year cautious prediction on how the trend is going to be. We expect that Africa will be able to add at least 3 new biotech crops in the global basket. Cassava, which is already undergoing environmental review in Kenya, and we expect that this should be completed and farmers will be able to start planting, hopefully in the next year or so. Then we have banana in Uganda that is also complete research. Potato, they have also completed in Uganda, and now Kenya is also starting. And so these crops are not yet in the global biotech basket, but African researchers have completed research, and we expect that this will also be approved in the very near future, in the next 3 to 5 years or so. Now, we ask our question as we close. What will it take to position Africa as a leader than a follower? As you saw in the adoption, Africa is only commanding 1.5% of global adoption over the last 24 years. So meaning that Africa continues to lag behind, not as a leader, but as a follower. I have identified 3 main factors. One of them is political goodwill. We need to have political goodwill at the African Union. African Union is the union that brings together all the 54 countries in Africa. And if we have that political goodwill, then we'll see more and more countries being able to harness this technology. We also need to get the vibrant African youth into bioentrepreneurship, and we again see biotechnology as one of the lead technologies that can help in harnessing this ripe talent in Africa that is ready to adopt new technologies. And we have seen in the area of information communication technologies how Africa has been able to lead. You may be familiar with the mobile money transfer. We call it the M-Pesa in Kenya. That was an innovation from Kenya, and it has actually opened up doors for transferring money in any part of the globe where no other technology could have enabled that transfer. And this is really what is encouraging us to see Africa is moving forward and can be a leader. Then we need thirdly to also exploit the new science and technology innovation horizons for the 4th industrial revolution. And these are genome editing, synthetic biology that will enable production of biotech reagents locally. That has remained a major challenge. And again, COVID-19 has taught us that there can come a time when even flights will not be able to fly, and so you will not be able to get reagents. And in fact, some universities have reported delay in implementation of their research because they were not able to get their reagents in time when most of the airline companies downed their planes because of COVID. And then these new for the industrial revolution technologies are also transdisciplinary. They cut across agriculture, health, environment, and industrial applications. And this is also going to be another attribute that need to be embraced very, very quickly. And for Africa, the African regulators also need the courage. And this is a statement from our Director General from Nigeria, Rufus, who said that African biosafety regulators need courage and knowledge to act in the face of overwhelming scientific evidence, despite threats from those who refuse to believe in the efficacy of safe science and technology. And he has been encouraging African regulators to stand with the science, to stand by the scientific reviews that they have done, and stand by the decisions they make, because this is already a safe science. We have seen it. We have seen trillions of meals being served in most of the other countries that have adopted technology with no side effect. And lastly, what we have also seen is not all the countries are ready to embrace the technology. Some are growing, and we have seen even in the ISAAA report, others are trading, importing. They don't see the need for growing, but they see the need to import these crops for their industries, for their food feed, and also for processing. And so we need to embrace coalition of the willing so that we can be able to share the data, we share the scientific expertise, and also do our trading so that we are not confined in fear, but we are able to move with those countries that are able and that are willing to move. And then that way, those that move and move well, we can demonstrate the impact. And once the demonstrated impact is visible, then we'll get the new cohort of other countries growing biotech crops. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to share this information and knowledge about Africa. And I invite you to join our drumbeat, which is the Africa Bioscience Trends. If you're interested to know more about African biotech trends, you can contact me. And then we also are having the Africa Biennial Biosciences Communication Symposium. We hope that this will happen in 2021 in Senegal, which is a West African country. But of course, this is subject to availability of the COVID-19 vaccine. Again, emphasizing the importance of science to bring us solutions to mankind's problems. And then again, as we transition to the new ISAAA Biotrust Consortium, we hope that we'll carry you along because we need you, we want you, and you have been our main supporters, and we not want to leave you behind. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the panel discussion and answering the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Margaret Karembu. That's really impressive. And we know that the Filipino audience is now appreciating what's going on in Africa. And so we have heard the global status, we have heard the African challenges and the applications of biotechnology. Now let us see what's happening in the Philippines. And we have invited a very famous farmer to share with us his experiences in biotech crop adoption. And so here is Dr. Richard Torno. He is a veterinarian by training and has worked in an international animal hospital based in Singapore. But due to the influence of his farmer father, he now operates a large farm in Pampanga with a lot of crops, including biotech maize. Dr. Torno would be sharing with us his experiences and somehow his expectations. So, Dr. Torno, you have the floor. Can we start with the first slide? Okay, you have the floor. You can start now, sir.
Yeah, okay
Yeah.
na. Okay na.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good morning to everyone. I'm Richard Torno. I'm a farmer here in the Philippines. Thank you for inviting me in this web seminar or webinar. Okay, I want to share my experiences here in my BT corn farming in the Philippines. I want to share all the techniques and especially the yield that I got. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Land preparation is the one foundation, especially in farming. Before we use um, uh, animal crops for cultivation, but now we use the use of technology or mechanization. We use a tractor and mechanized farming to increase or to make the soil better. Next. In planting, the very big role is the genetics or the seeds that we plant. When we planting, we ensure the soil has been irrigated or rain-fed prior to farming. Uniformly or use our mechanized planter for more use to or the depth to become uniform or the consequent. And even in our farming experiences, the BT seeds is the one. Is the like I said, this is the major foundation because we experiences before. We use the conventional seeds. Sad experience. We we got low yield, but now thank you for this technology, the bt corn seeds. We got um, um, high yield around 8 tons up to 12 tons per hectare. Imagine that it's a big yield. Many farmers or even we experience, we even our our income become doubled. We send our children, or our business become good. Even this pandemic, many business here in the Philippines um, become down, but the agricultural sector is the big role, or become a backbone of our economy. That's why we encourage our co-farmer here in the Philippines to back to farming. That's why even I'm a veterinarian by profession. I I make a business in farming, especially in planting corn. You know, um, uh, the food security is the big important nowadays. That's why you have this corn, or the BT. Uh, we have ensure uh, yield. Next, after planting, we make the next foundation is the fertilization. The nutrition is the big role to become the corn become uh, or the needs of the plant. Okay, here is showing this video or this picture, our beauty corn, our uniform, and before we experience a lot of pests, but this picture you can see our problem in stem borer. Here in the Philippines, there's a lot of stem borer. But this BT corn, we have managed by this technology, or the BT corn solved this problem. Even our this also herbicide tolerance. We can plant much or big area before we have problem in weed control by healing up or of burying. But now, thank you for the beauty corn are resistant. Next, here I am. See the corn are, this is a 50-day old corn. This um, this this BT corn, and ready to 1 month more ready for harvest for silage, because here we use BT corn for silage, for for cattle feed, and we use also a mechanized. See, the we harvest in mechanized. um, we reach up to 50 tons per hectare. Imagine the 50 tons per hectare. Many cows or goats can be fed, and we solve our problem. Even the Philippines have a dry season. We stock our silage, or our corn silage in a bunker. When it dry season, we can fed. Next. These the advantages that we experience in BT corn or the GMO. Um, effective and resistance against pests, especially the Asiatic corn borer. We reduce using pesticides application, good grain quality, uh, good grain quality, especially in feed company that we send our corn because they are good quality. We pay this very good price also. We lessen our production costs because of the weed control and many laborer. We lessen our costs because of the high yielding our production around 8 to 12 tons. Imagine that we can that make money on that yield, and easy to obey also here in the Philippines, and increase yield up to 30% or double the yield. You can see this picture how we prepare our silage. We uh, we pack manually, but here we also have a mechanized. But you know, sometimes we need to give extra income to our laborer. We encourage in a backyard to make silage, and you can see we fed in our cattle, in our ruminants, and on our study or in my experience in my cattle farm, um, this is a good uh, source of nutrition also. Yeah, you can see my harvest. We practice silage and others grain for feed or animal feed production also. We use mechanized, and see we use solar drying here because we have a lot of uh, sunshine here in the Philippines. That's why we use the solar drying. The expectation in this uh, technology, especially in we expecting this to be used in high value crops like eggplant. Nowadays, many uh, eggplant producing, they are using massive pesticide to produce their eggplant. But if you use here the BT eggplant or the GM eggplant here in the Philippines, many farmer, even we can uh, plant eggplant so that we can solve our problem, especially many eggplant farmer here experiencing uh, uh, bankrupt in their farming because of many pests and diseases. Um, I We are expecting this eggplant, GM eggplant, to be plant massive here in the Philippines. Not only eggplant, especially many crops, especially cassava and other crops. We are expecting soon here in our country. Thank you for this uh, time, uh, for listening, and God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Torno. Please stay put, and we're going to have a discussion later on. I know that there are a lot of questions directed to you because they came here just to see you. Of course, it's because here we have to see what's happening in the Philippines. So now let's see what are we going to hear from our student. Our next speaker is Mr. Gerald Mores, or we call him Gigi. He is the current president of the UP League of Agricultural Biotechnology Students, or UP Labs. It's an active organization that promotes safe, responsible, and science based agricultural biotechnology. Uh, and Gigi is biotechnology for the betterment of the Philippine agriculture. Gigi is the former student ambassador of the International Rice Research Institute. He is a queer science enthusiast who aspires to be a future scientist. He is a BS Agricultural Biotechnology student of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, majoring in animal biotech. Let's welcome Gerald Mores, please. Gerald?
Thank you, Dr. Aldimita, for that kind introduction. To all the participants, to all our speakers, Dr. Teng, Dr. Karembu, Dr. Torno, and Dr. Haruanan, good day to all of you. To ISAAA, especially to Dr. Aldimita, on behalf of the UP League of Agricultural Biotechnology students, I am grateful to be part of today's webinar. Let me share my screen first. So we have seen the potentials of biotechnology to transform the world. Progress, security, and safety are the promises of the discoveries, innovations, and the people behind the success of biotechnology. Its milestones are the marks of yesterday's dreams. So what's next for biotechnology, especially in agricultural biotechnology? I believe we need people who will stand as stewards and continue the mission and vision of agricultural biotechnology. And this is where the young generations become relevant. The people who are inspired by the achievements of the past to take part, make a difference, and look forward for the future of biotechnology. Today, one of the avenues of the youth to show their significance in biotechnology is through student organizations. We, the UP League of Agricultural Biotechnology Students, or UP Labs, as the pioneering agri-biotech student organization that was established in 2010, and together with other student organizations, we advocate for science-based knowledge of the potentials of biotechnology for the advancement of agricultural of for the advancement of agricultural sector through promotion of biotechnology and engaging our fellow youth to the said field of knowledge. So the youth are said to be the seedlings of the future. Therefore, they need to be nourished by sustaining them adequate knowledge, honing their skills, and providing them opportunities to showcase their capacities and for them to make impacts one day. That's why there are various activities that would cater the needs of these young generations. Nowadays, we have been seeing youth become more involved in the promotion and development of biotech communities through activities such as the first ever National Biotech Summit of UP Labs, lectures or symposia, quiz contests, community extension services, mentorship, and many more. We, the youth, have been supporting biotechnology and defending GMO against the misconceptions by educating our peers and other people. And lastly, despite the pandemic, the youth upholds their faith to biotechnology by attending and organizing webinars that showcase the capacity of biotechnology in addressing health crises. As part of the youth, myself, I believe that when the youth use their full potential, energy, and passion, these young generations could be the next phase of tomorrow's successful technology. And this leads me to my next question. So, what are the hopes of the youth, or what do they look forward to in the future of biotechnology with the youth? One, they look forward to a youth-driven agri-biotech, a community that would inspire more youth to be involved in the application of biotechnology in agriculture. Also, a community that would support the potentials of the youth, provide them the knowledge, foster their skills, and sustain them with opportunities. And lastly, a community that would foster their academic excellence, leadership skills, and social relations, thereby enhancing their personal capabilities to help improve the nation's conditions through biotechnology. Next is engaging in effective science communication. This means that the youth hopes for accessible knowledge through communication and extension programs to reach more stakeholders, including the farmers. transmitting message concisely and clearly to be able to understand by the audience, including the students, faculty, farmers, the public and private sectors is significant. And this is all about engaging our audiences, getting their interest and and at the same time bringing them the knowledge. So according to Science American Site and I quote, when scientists were able to communicate effectively beyond their peers to broader non-scientist audiences, it builds support for science, promotes understanding of its wider relevance to society, and encourage more informed decision making at all levels, from government to communities to individuals. It can also make science accessible to audiences that traditionally have been excluded from process of science. Thus, it can help science more diverse and inclusive. Another thing that the youth is looking forward to is enhancing biotechnology programs through science community support. This will overcome the roadblocks of R&D through support and prioritization of our scientists and the science enthusiast youth. And also, we look forward to equal opportunities to biotechnology. This implies that fairness should be practiced always, unhampered by prejudices or preferences. Opportunities shall not be taken away from people because of their ethnicity, religion, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual characters. Because at the end of the day, brilliant ideas may come from anyone. And moreover, we look forward to a sustainable biotechnology, which will provide proven, safe, and scientifically based sustainable agricultural products. And we all know that agricultural biotechnology can increase food production and make agriculture more sustainable. And also, we hope for the innovation and dynamic efficiency of building scientific policy, capacity involving productive and mutually enhancing partnerships with centers of excellence. And also, progressive agribiotech is an indication of agricultural advancement for economic growth and national development. And at the end of the day, there is a call for more agricultural biotechnological innovations. And since biotechnology is a series of technologies or innovations, as we inspire the youth and other people to think and innovate, we want to protect their ideas, discoveries, and innovations through strengthened intellectual property rights. And lastly, the young generations hope for more application of biotechnology in disaster preparedness and risk reduction. We have seen that the pandemic has tested the capacity of biotechnology, and the biotech didn't fail us with the upcoming vaccine. We hope that there would be more applications of biotechnology in the future to save more lives and for the general welfare of the people. So I have mentioned about the youth, the representation and involvement in biotechnology. But let's not forget the role of the adults, or I would say the well-experienced or our mentors. I believe that they have the responsibility to bring sparks, ignite the biotech spirit within the hearts of these young generations. Because when these young generations were able to foster knowledge, realize their full potentials, hone their skills, and provided with opportunities, they could make impacts and be the best version of themselves for biotechnology. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gigi. So we have, and you did it in a good time. We would now like to open up the discussion portion, but first, I'd like to invite everyone to put your questions in the Q&A box, although some of our speakers have already started answering some of them. So I think even if they were already answered, we have to read them and discuss some more details on the questions that were raised. So one of the questions is for Dr. Torno, and I think Dr. Torno has already responded to Dr. Tylo. And for the information of everyone, the question would be, do you have support from the government for your mechanization? Can you respond to that again, sir?
Okay. Yes, we have a lot of support in our, especially nowadays, even last even the the previous time of President Aquino, and even here the President Duterte, we have a lot of support, especially the organized group. Now we have 100% support, especially if you have organized group or engaging in especially in modern technology or farming. And we have also a support the we call the new generation. I mean the millennial farmer. If you have example, if you have an agriculturist or a young graduate aligned with agriculture, the government had support around 1 million pesos starting capital, zero interest. You can start engaging farming or farming business. And if you have uh, knowledge in mechanization also, they lend you for buying tractors. And if you are organized, they give 100% grant.
Okay. So it seems that our government is very responsive in terms of mechanization to farmers. That's a good information to share.
Yeah.
Now,
Again,
yes, sir.
uh,
Yeah.
even the seeds that we
Mm,
receive, the government purchase a lot of BT corn seeds. The corn program, especially the Department of Agriculture. We have a record. They buy a lot of BT corn, especially in our Luzon area. Because we are affected in recent typhoon, they want to plant again. Now they purchase a lot of BT corn. They give to the farmer as free also.
oh, okay. Yeah, there's one question from Adrian, and to follow up on that mechanization support from the government. I am delighted to see you embracing mechanization, mechanized technified agriculture. What percentage of growers in the Philippines are as technified, technology savvy, or mechanized farming mechanization savvy farmers, and what percentage smallholder growers? So are there many of you like you who use mechanized farming?
Nowadays, we have a lot of uh, engaging in mechanized farming, because if we use a traditional or planting manually, um, it's a big problem, because many laborer here in the Philippines or in our area, especially in Luzon, um, because many laborer going to other line, especially in factory. The mechanization is the solution or the answer. That's why the government also again support this mechanized farming.
Mhm. Yeah, nice to know. Thank you so much. One question now is for Dr. Margaret Karembu, although she answered this already. What is the slope of farmlands in Africa planted with herbicide-tolerant crops? How is the experience with soil erosion, if there's any?
Thank you very much, and very nice to link up again with Carlo Jr. I think we met sometime in Tanzania more than 10 years ago. So yes, herbicide-tolerant crops remain an important attribute for Africa, mainly because we have very many farmers, but aging, so they need help with the weeding, and applying herbicide-tolerant crops will definitely help. But only South Africa currently is applying HT crops. And what we have seen is a reduction in soil erosion because of less plowing, and so practicing more of conservation agriculture. with our small scale farmers, the slope, of course, is the terrain is not quite flat. So most of Africa is slopey, the farmlands, and so farmers will require additional training to ensure that we have reduced soil erosion by practicing the management practices. So we farmers are really looking forward. In fact, in Eswatini, South Africa, also in Southern Africa, farmers have not been very much enthusiastic about the BT, the insect resistant only trait. They have already demanded that they need the insect resistant start with herbicide tolerant because there is very little labor available in their marketplace. But again, I agree that we need to take care of soil erosion to ensure that we don't pollute the soils with the herbicides that are applied in the herbicide tolerant crops.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margaret. Now, there are again a few more questions let's have one for Gerald Mores, Gigi. This is from, I think this is for Margaret. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you engage as a young student, as somebody who knows biotechnology and your student, do you engage with biotech companies for applying the knowledge in the job market? Are young people in the Philippines engaged in farming?
Yes, we do. We have the UP Labs has established institutional connections such as the ISAAA, the ERI. We always every time we have events, we always invite them and for their support and their sponsorship to send for sponsorship. And these institutions have been with UP Labs to promote biotech in agriculture. And yes, the youth in the Philippines, I would say, really engage in farming.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes.
Are the young people coming up with some biotech companies in the Philippines? Once you finish?
Sorry?
Oh, Ola.
Again. Yes, please, go ahead.
Oh, I was just asking Gerald, because this is a very interesting talk, because our young people here are also trying to get an entry into the biotech sector. But our challenge is we don't really have local biotech companies that are growing. So I was asking, within your student leadership and the members, do you have those that graduate starting up some biotech companies or not yet?
Yeah. After they have graduated from the university, they usually apply for these institutions. And luckily, fortunately, they were able to get into these institutions. We have alumni, I would say, who are working with these institutions.
Okay, the question would be if there are now new graduates from agri-biotechnology who have established their own businesses which are biotech based, something like that.
Yeah.
So for example, any fermentation company or GM production company or something like that. Well, to my knowledge, yes. To my knowledge, I haven't heard of it yet, but maybe Gigi knows. Do you know anybody who has graduated and established their own biotech companies?
Oh yes, one of the alumni. He has established a hydroponics.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Simple hydroponics. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Now we will have there are still a lot of questions here, so we'll have to look at them one by one. Dr. Torno, this is from Reynaldo. I can't see the last name. Did you experience any resistance from your peer farmers or other people about your adoption on biotech farming, and how did you address them?
Yes, before, 15 years ago, there are a lot of bit resistance before because of my practice, or I'm a veterinary. We have a lot of research, we have a lot of inquiry, just a little bit before, but now it's 100% support in this technology. And in farming, because of I research or inquire everything that I asked my friend and other um, um, expert on this field. They encourage me to, or I engage 100% because of this. I haven't see any problem because
Mhm.
this the answer or the solution to correct or to, because we have problem in food security and food safety. I encourage, or I said this safe, and I encourage every farmer to use this uh, technology.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this your response also answered Dr. Tylo's question on how your success story affected your community. Now, if you are aware, maybe if you are aware, would you know if the Northern Luzon is the top corn producer still?
Yeah.
Or,
uh,
yeah, yes, it is still
yes.
the top producer.
The Cagayan
Mm-hmm.
Valley is the top corn producer here in the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines, and in South also in Mindanao.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a few, shortage because of the typhoon. That's
Mm-hmm.
why the government encouraged many farmers to plant BT corn to correct this shortage. But before last year, we have surplus.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um, that's why many feed company are happy because they their requirements are they meet their requirements, and many farmer using corn and other I don't know the soya, but the soy is, I know is importing from Argentina and US. This also I know is GM soya also. That's
Mm-hmm.
why they correct their need, especially the feed millers. They are happy because we are importing many corn and soya.
Mm-hmm.
Now my answer is um, again. The corn sustain the need of many feed millers here in the Philippines.
Yes. We notice also that the data that we have collated show that the Philippines also went up again in terms of area planted to biotech maize in 2019. So I think this is what you were saying, that there was surplus production because of the increased area. Would you know the reason why there was an increase in the area planted to biotech maize in 2019? Because previous to that, there were 2 years that the Philippines had 600,000 hectares, and now we have 837,000, I guess. So, what could have affected this increase in area planted?
Sorry.
Dr. Okay. Yeah. You were saying that in 2019, there was a surplus production and many companies were happy that you had a lot of harvest
Yes.
from biotech corn. And I also noticed that the area planted to biotech maize also went up in 2019.
Yes.
So would you know what happened, why it went up, why the area of biotech maize went up again in the Philippines?
Yes. Because one is the price of the corn is stable here because many farmers are depend on the income, and
Mhm.
another one is the climate here in Luzon. You know there's a lot example in our area before the rain start
Mhm.
in July, but
Mhm.
now the rain start in May. It
Mhm.
means 2 months advance. That's why we plant early, and the
Mhm.
climate's good also. That's why
Mhm.
many corn farmers are encouraged, or they even we plant many corn. That's why I mean, many farmer, that's why the corn percentage become high.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that confirmed my beliefs also, and I placed it in the brief. Now, there's another question from Dr. Karembu. Do you have any challenges in getting a market for your surplus BT cotton harvest? BT corn sa harvest, sorry. Do you have any challenges in marketing your surplus BT corn harvest? Do we have surplus in any case? And then can we market that? Are we marketing the surplus, or we just use it for our own consumption, for the Philippine consumption? Or do we export? Do you have a surplus? Do we have export of BT corn, Biotech corn? Did you get the question, Dr. Torna? Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Again.
Again, the connection is poor here because I'm here in my
Ah,
farm. We have wireless internet.
okay, sir. So the question is from Dr. Karembu. Do you have any challenges in marketing the surplus BT corn harvest?
So far, we don't have because that's why you can see my product is silage and grains. We have a schedule in example. Uh, if we in in planting corn, we have a agreement first. The buyer, example, the one company need only this tons. I plant this area, and the other area intended for silage. I manage. That's why many farmer uh, copy my experience or doing farming. Uh, Not only depending on the market, we have also have own farm or have example the ruminants like now we experience the buyer in hog industry because the hog
Mm.
industry here in the Philippines become
Mm.
by affected by African swine fever. Many uh, piggery close their farm because of this fest. That's why we have a plan B, making silage. I mean
Mhm.
the 75 days BT corn we silage for cattle or goats and sheep. That's why our surplus we don't have problem because even the poultry industry here in the Philippines need a lot of corn also.
Mhm.
That's why our surplus or the BT corn grains, many buyer also suggest to grow more area.
Mm. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you expect that the Philippines will export our BT
Uh,
corn products?
Probably by 2 more years
Mhm.
because many sugarcane farmer are engaging in BT corn farming. Example in Panay region in Negros because of the price of the corn are not good.
Mhm.
Many planters
Sugarcane.
or the sugarcane farmer are um, planting. I mean, if they have 100 hectares, 50% sugarcane, 50% corn. Not like a days, 100 depend on sugarcane only. But now they have option. That's why we 2 more years we can export uh,
Mhm.
corn.
Yes, thank you so much. Now let's move to another question, and I think Dr. Paul Teng can respond to this. Are biotech crops marketed globally? with label, or biotech crops are marketed with labeling? What do you think of labeling? Can you comment, sir, on the labeling issue?
Well, okay. Sorry, I think that there's no single answer to this. It really depends on the country concerned. Many countries don't label for biotech products. Other countries do. So very variable answer, I think. I won't get into all the details.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of details concerned, yeah.
Yes.
But certainly all the biotech crops that are grown are labeled because farmers know that they are buying biotech crops. It's only the food products, I think, that, where there are big differences, I think, between countries, yeah.
Yes. Yes. The question is from Prabodata Sohu, and yes, the answer to that is many countries have different countries have different rules on commercialization. If it's going to be for food, feed, and processing, it could be labeled or not. So it will be nice if you can look up at this concern country-wise. There's no blanket rule on this. And then we have one question again. Do you have, where is that? Okay. The question would be for the student organization. This is just my question. Gigi, can you open your camera? In terms of, I know that there are a lot of student organizations in the university who are into many different aspects, especially the academic societies. So how do you gauge the interest of the students? Are they in joining your organizations? So for example, UP Labs, are they interested in recruiting students who are taking agri-biotechnology only, or just the recruitment process and the interest of the students on biotechnology, perhaps?
Yeah. Yes, actually, the organization is only recruiting students under agri-biotech and students who have genetic
Background.
subject background.
Yes.
Or
And
students
yes.
or students who will shift to the biotech course.
Yeah. I would like to also ask whether you have the organization or some other student organizations that are focusing on biotechnology. Have you done any national movement or in support of some initiatives on biotechnology that you
Yes.
can name? Okay.
Yes, together with the UP Grains, we usually attend march for support, like the BT Talong March. We also publish supporting letters, like the current supporting statement of UP Labs to the commercialization of um, the golden rice. And also we conduct activities such as National Biotech Summit to engage more youth in biotechnology.
That's wonderful. What are the other activities that you think would be important in these endeavors to support biotechnology in the country, besides the ones that you have mentioned? Maybe some other new ideas that our partners here can learn from?
I think more on the communication and extension programs, because there are some youth that are not yet able to inform about the biotechnology and its potentials. More on of
Okay.
that.
So it's still the communication. I
Yes.
think, yes, thank you so much. We still have a little more time, and I'm still waiting for any other questions that can come up. But while we're waiting, maybe we can have last few sentences or messages from our speakers. Maybe we can start with Dr. Teng. Your last messages on the Philippine acceptance of biotech.
Well, I think Gigi's points are very interesting. And I want to share the Singapore experience. Many of the young people who are starting biotech related enterprises are in fact not biotech or biology graduates. They're more finance people, engineers, and so on, who see the potential in biotech. So I actually would encourage Gigi's group to reach out to the business people, business students, and so on, because it is so easy to make a case, for return on investment with biotech. And that's when these guys have more knowledge, to actually start enterprises. And that's what I'm seeing in Singapore now. A lot of young graduates taking risk, getting venture capital to start their own companies. One of them, in fact, is going to be getting a big amount of support, I think. A startup called Turtle Tree, that is producing milk from cells, mammalian cells, okay? So that you can actually increase the volume of milk available, for many people, produce at cost. So just one example there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Teng. Margaret, any
Yeah,
last messages?
Yeah, thank you so much, and very nice to hear about the success of BT corn in Philippines, and especially from the farmer. And I want to encourage the farmers to continue with that message and possibly reach out to the farmers in Africa who have been denied access to this technology for a very long time. BT maize remains a major food and feed crop. We use it more in the Eastern and Central African region for food as opposed to feed. But now that we see there are many, many opportunities for increasing our feed lot, because again, once you do that, you reduce the competition for food. So I'd like to encourage the farmers to continue and reach out, share your messages so that other farmers around the world can hear about these experiences. And for Gigi, definitely, one of the areas that I'll be very interested in is linking up our growing early career and young professionals who are both in biotechnology and also in commerce, so that they can come to start their own businesses. And Paul, our experience here is different. We are having now biotech students getting into banking sector. And so they're not, instead of getting into entrepreneurship, there is more of those that we are losing out. So that's why we are not seeing much of the bio entrepreneurship growing. And so I think these are messages that need to be tied together, so we get these biotech students exposure to bio-entrepreneurship, and then the banking and commerce students, the non-biotech students, linking up with these biotech students, because they can make a very good match and very successful businesses together. So I think for that is a missing link that we need to bridge, and we'll count on the young people and the experiences from Singapore and others to get these teams together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. And then Dr. Torno, please. Any last messages?
Okay. I want to address this in especially the young generation, especially in the Philippines. The age of the farmers around average around 56 years old. Many young generation now that their line not in agriculture, but now I encourage to engage to this, especially the biotechnology, business farming, because there are a lot of opportunity in this business. Not only material aspect, we can help our community, our economy, especially the Philippines. There are a lot of mountains or means uh, challenges. This technology or biotechnology or farming BT corn or other crops related, this is a good opportunity or a business, especially the young generation or the new graduates or even the many business engaging in different line, uh, give time in this food production or biotechnology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Torno. And before we call Gigi, there's one question here. Gigi, open your camera. Are you open for collaboration with other students of agriculture coming from other universities which have interest in agri-biotech? So this is a question from Jason Olaita. And then you can give your last comments also.
Oh yes, the organization has been establishing partnerships and collaborations with other or student organizations from the other universities. Yes, we are very open. And
Okay.
for my last comments, I would say I just want to emphasize, I guess, some of my statements that I have mentioned. One is I believe that when the youth use their full potential, energy, and passion, these young generations could be the next phase of tomorrow's successful biotechnology. And also, we also give thanks to the mentors since they have the responsibility to bring spark, ignite the biotech spirit within the hearts of these young generations. As I said, these young generations, when fostered with knowledge, realize their full potentials, hone their skills, and provided with opportunities, they could make impacts and be the best version of themselves for biotechnology. To ISAAA, thank you very much for the opportunity for promoting biotechnology and for promoting our advocacy, the advocacy of the organization, and looking forward for more collaborations from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much also. And UP Labs has been our partner in many of our activities. So, but in closing, we would like now to thank you very much, Gigi. Would now like to close, and I'd like to invite Dr. Mahalet Chumi Arojanan. She is the Global Coordinator of ISA and the Executive Director of Malaysian Biotech Information Center. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Petri Dish and a co-founder of Science Media Center Malaysia. Dr. Arujanan is an international consultant for UNFAO Biosafety Project in Sri Lanka and an adjunct lecturer of Monash University, Malaysia, and Ames University. She holds a PhD from University of Malaya. Let's welcome Dr. Arujanan, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aldemita, and thank you so much to all the panelists for such rich sharing. Now, we are always glad to speak to in the Philippines, because Philippines for ISAAA is like our second home. It's our first home for many of us. It's also the second home for those who are based outside Philippines. So I think for ISAAA, I don't have to give a big introduction of what ISAAA does in the Philippines, because most stakeholders in agribiotechnology know ISAAA. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the spotlight onto ISAAA 2.0. This is what I call the next phase that ISAAA is moving on. So here, just a recap of what ISAAA has been doing. We have been the pioneer in knowledge transfer on agribiotechnology with almost 3 decades of impactful work both in Asia and Africa. So if you see Asia, Africa, this is the bulk of developing nations. Facilitated approval and adoption of biotechnology crops, supported resource-poor farmers and alleviation of poverty, increased public awareness of agribiotechnology among all stakeholders. So from farmers, policymakers, scientists, regulators, investors, industry players, the public, media, students, teachers. So we have actually covered, including religious scholars. This was actively done in Philippines during the early years of adoption of BT-Con and until now, and also in Malaysia. So we just cover the entire spectrum of stakeholders who are involved in agribiotechnology. And we have also enhanced capacity building on biosafety regulations, because we know without biosafety, the adoption will not be there. So we have done this actively in many countries. So this is what ISAAA has been doing. Now, what is next for ISAAA? So we are very excited in launching the next phase of ISAAA. We are going to call ourselves BioTrust Consortium. So being a consortium, we are looking for partners. We are looking for other players who are going to be sharing the common goals in adoption of agribiotechnology. Our tagline is feeding the world with knowledge on sustainable biosciences. So from agribiotechnology, we are now moving to a wider scope of biosciences. I will explain to you what are the scope in biosciences that ISAAA will be embarking on. Our purpose statement for BioTrust is to eliminate hunger and malnutrition in a thoughtful and sustainable manner. And our mission statement, by promoting transparency and knowledge sharing on agricultural biosciences, we instill trust in the food system, allowing safe and effective innovations to contribute to a sustainable future. I would say the two keywords here is transparency and trust. I think in the fight, in the earlier battle with GM, probably a lot of things that we did not really have so much of transparency and trust. So we are going to make sure that our work is going to be built on these two pillars, trust and transparency, and for effective innovations to contribute future sustainable future. Our vision is we envision a world where agricultural biosciences contribute to sustainability, societal well-being, and prosperity. So it's the three pillars: sustainability, societal well-being, and also prosperity. And as I said, we are looking at biosciences. So we are going beyond crop biotechnology, but everything that stems from agriculture. And we all know that agriculture is now moving towards plant-made pharmaceuticals, biomass, and any organic complex compound can be developed through precision fermentation. So agriculture is going to be the root for many industry. So ISAAA is going to move towards biosciences, where we will look at, of course, in agriculture biotechnology, we will look at the new breeding technologies, gene editing, synthetic biology, and gene drive. And we are also moving beyond to biomass. As I said, biomass, from biomass, we can just create any complex organic compounds, whether it's going to be for food industry, whether it's going to be for pharmaceutical, for any other industry, industrial non-food as well. We are also going to look at livestock, poultry, aquaculture. I think Dr. Torno is a very good example where he's got an integrated farm of crops and animals. And we know that the protein is going to increase in demand. The world global protein demand is going to increase. So we will also be supporting all the technology and innovation in livestock, poultry, aquaculture. We will also look at microbial technologies, because as I said, microbes can be just redesigned to produce anything that we want. And future food, we are talking about lab-made meat, we are talking about lab-made protein that is based on vegetables, and all this is going to come from precision fermentation. So these are the main things that ISAAA is going to embark on, and we could add in new technologies in the basket in the future. So ISAAA has been very farmer-centric. Farmers will still be the center of our activities, because we want farmer adoption and for sustainable agriculture, for sustainable food production. But we will also go beyond farmer and look at consumers. We have been working with all these stakeholders, but we are going to enhance it and strengthen it. So we look at consumers, scientists, industry, traders, manufacturers, youth, and women empowerment. Now, Gigi is a real good icon for youth empowerment, and she really embodied what we are going to do. And we're also going to look at social licensing. Now, what is social licensing? In the past, approval is given by regulatory agencies, but looking at the innovation that's coming into food production, societal approval is going to be very, very important. For example, for lab-made meat, but we're also looking at societal approval for GM crops and gene-edited crops. We saw this, many crops, many trades events are approved in EU, but the society has not approved it. So it has not been adopted. Approval is there, but it's not been adopted. So we are increasingly going to look at social licensing so that there will be approval from the society. And I am a strong believer, after listening to Gigi, and I've been it just echoes what I have been thinking about. It's not just about all the other stakeholders, but adoption is so important so that all the young graduates that we are training, they get into a market. We can create also a market for them, because we see this in many developing countries. We have got more young graduates than the industry can cope with. So for that, we need more approval, we need more adoption, we need more new industry. So we are very keen to work in all these areas. So I'm calling on behalf of ISAAA, I'm calling all the partners, collaborators who are in this space, who have got common goals, come and speak to us and be partner to our BioTrust Consortium. That's my email. So we'll be very happy to speak to all of you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maha. And with that, I know that it's almost lunchtime, but we have spent a lot, almost 2 hours of discussion. We gained a lot of knowledge on agri-biotechnology. We saw what's going on in the global scenario in Africa, which is now They used to be the new frontier, but now they're no longer the new frontier because they are now expanding, and we're expecting a lot more countries coming up in the next few years. And we now know that in the Philippines, farmers, just like Dr. Torno, are very much accepting on biotech crops, and they are looking forward to other biotech crops which will be available to them. And he mentioned BT eggplant, and we hope that we can have also GM cassava. We have our approvals for cultivation is still with GM corn. So let's wait a while for, I don't know for how many more years. And for Gerald, wow, for Gigi, that's really an eye opener for us that the youth in the Philippines, open up your camera, Gigi, that the youth in the Philippines is serving as a model. And I hope that some of the countries who are having some difficulty in acceptance, maybe we have to look at the youth and their voice, follow what they mean and what they intend to do in the future. They want to embrace new technologies, and we have to help them. We can mentor them and help them achieve their goals. So with that, I'd like to thank you again. Thank you all for the participants. And we have also participants from Facebook and YouTube. And we have participants from all over the world, not only in the Philippines. And we look forward to engaging with you again. Our next webinar will be with Europe on the 16th. So you might see the advertisement and you might want to join again to see what's coming up in Europe, what's going on. Why are there some skeptics over there? Okay, so with that, thank you so much. Thank you, ISAAA team, ISAAA Southeast Asia Center, and ISAAA AfriCenter, and of course, our executives. Thank you so much. Good day. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Gigi. Thank you, Dr. Torno.
Bye,
That's been
Gigi, Dr.
wonderful.
Torno.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.